Hello, hello. It's me, Arden Lee. I am the creator of the Repatterning Project, and today I want to talk a little bit about issues that formerly gifted kids face now in our world today as adults. Before I get into that, if you want to check out the work that we do at the Repatterning Project, which is that we hack our beliefs to optimize our lives for success and happiness. Do check out the description box below where I have a link to a free PDF guide to learn more about the repatterning modality, and also a link to a free community on Facebook moderated by yours truly and full of like-minded people who are also looking to hack their beliefs and get on that path to self-improvement and personal growth. So I do encourage you, check those out if you have any interest. Without further ado, let's get to the topic that I want to talk about today, which, as I said, is what happens to you if you are a formerly gifted kid and you know you have creative abilities, you know that you're intelligent, you know that you came into this world with certain gifts, certain abilities, certain aptitudes for things. And now as an adult, you're feeling burned out, you're feeling a little lost, you're feeling directionless, you're feeling like you had all of this potential and what on earth happened? That was certainly part of my story. I grew up in my kindergarten that I went to. And I'm not saying this like to brag, because I don't, this is just what happened. This is just the experience that I had. I was in a public school kindergarten, and I was so bored with everything because I'd already started reading on my own. My mom had read to me when I was a kid, and I learned to read pretty easily. If you ask me on a spiritual sense, I might theorize that I was told when I was very young by a psychic that I was an old soul. So I think there is possibly some merit to the idea that I had learned to read many times already, and that coming back into this human experience, I kind of already had that advantage or whatever. It was pretty easy for me to pick up. Regardless of whether you believe in that or not, I certainly knew how to read when my classmates were still, for some of them, still learning the alphabet. So I was bored. My teachers knew I was bored, and they took me out of classes, and they let me go sit in a computer class with some older students, and I got to play number munchers all day, which if you grew up in the 80s and you remember number munchers in Carmen Sandiego, they were delightful games. I totally played number munchers if it was still if it was still available. Maybe it is. I should look on the App Store later. And then I went to from first grade up and through high school. I went to a private Catholic school because, not because of any religious beliefs. My family actually baptized me Lutheran, but because it was a better education for where I lived. And there I was placed into a gifted program that we affectionately called the Challenge Center, where we got to get pulled out of our classes once a week and work on some cool, interesting projects that were not a normal part of school curriculum, like learning mythology, or one year we tried to make Rube Goldberg machines, and those were pretty cool. Stuff like, you get it, stuff like that. And I was very blessed in that regard. I'm very grateful for those gifts and abilities. I didn't really, that's not something that I can really credit myself with, because I was so young. There wasn't really much that I can say that I did to affect that. It's just something that I was given by by whoever created me, and here I am. And that's great. And a lot of the people that I work with also have backgrounds like similar to mine. And then we get into adulthood, and we're like, what do we do now? One of the things about being a gifted kid is that it makes school sometimes fairly easy, unless you're one of those gifted kids who's like super rebellious. Maybe you also had trauma growing up that made you not want to follow the rules, or for whatever reason that was in your spirit or in your biology to do so. That could be a little different, but for a lot of us, what it actually meant was we didn't really have a reason to rebel against school, because we were doing fine as it was, because the system was already designed to uphold people with gifts like ours, and quite frankly with privileges like ours, because intelligence in many ways is a blessing and a curse, but it certainly is a privilege in many environments. And certainly growing up and going to school and knowing how to hack school, it's not even intelligence, because it's like there's so many different forms of intelligence. There's many forms of intelligence that of people that don't do well in school because of that. But if you are, sorry, Virgil is yanking it. Hey, no, stop that. Here, you want to go play with your mouse? Play with it over there. So sorry about that. So there's plenty of very intelligent people who did not do well at school just because their variety of intelligence was not conducive to the scholastic experience. And there are many people who are intelligent, who their specific form of intelligence translated well to things like test taking, and getting good grades and yada yada. And I'm lucky in that my abilities, my abilities were in a lot of scholastic areas, things like language, things like retaining information, made me good at tests, made me good at all that kind of stuff. So there I was growing up and thinking like, well, this is easy, I've got everything kind of sorted out for me. And it led me to a lot of confusion in my adult life, because all of a sudden I didn't know kind of where to go without having something specific to strive for. So, there's this delightful Dresden Dolls lyric. If you guys are familiar with Amanda Palmer, who's now also the author of The Art of Asking, she wrote a lyric in a Dresden Dolls song that I believe was called The Perfect Fit. And she used to say, I used to be the bright one, the perfect fit. Funny how you slip so far when teachers don't keep track of it. And I really resonated with that a great deal. I knew that I had abilities, I knew that I had gifts, but I didn't know how to use them, where to use them, or how to apply myself. So here's some of why that happens. First of all is we get used to giving our power away to an authority figure. Even if we kind of know in our heads that teachers are, human beings and they're not really smarter than the rest of us, we still play into a system where, because the system is designed for us, for people who are good at test taking, for people who are good at scholastic lessons, it's very easy for us to slip into that system and say, regardless of how much faith we place in our individual teachers, to say, this system is designed for me, so therefore I'm just gonna do it and I'm gonna succeed at it. And we get into real life and we notice that we don't really have all that much of a system. Or perhaps it's also that the systems we do have aren't really set up to work in our favors. So I've known a lot of people who have stayed at pretty dead-end jobs for years, because maybe they weren't dead end. Maybe there was actually a lot of opportunity for advancement in them, but those opportunities for advancement were alluring in ways that were not actually personally satisfying. Like, have you ever gone into an environment and thought like, oh wow, I could do really well at this. Like I would, here's how I would do this. Like I would, I would make these moves and I'd do that, and then I'd climb my way up that ladder or whatever. Like I feel like if you drop me into this environment, I could be good at it. I think that a lot of gifted kids have this sort of natural, subtle air of competition as we get older, because we were good at competing when we were younger, and so we got that reward for being in competitive atmospheres. It's not like we're mean, it's not like we're backstabbing necessarily or whatever, but when we get that dopamine reward for like being in the talent show, or getting the math award or whatever it is, then we train our brains to respond even better and better to those kind of environments. And sometimes we can get landed in a job and be like, oh, I can do this, I can be good at this. And we do that without realizing that actually it's not making us happy at all. And that's one of the ways that we give our power away to the authority that's immediately in front of us without looking at the bigger picture, because that's what we're used to being in that school environment. Another way that we do that is sometimes in our relationships, and I think this showed up nowhere more literally than in my own case when I identified in the BDSM community as a submissive, not just a submissive, not just a sexual submissive, but a service-oriented submissive, which means that I wanted to date someone who would tell me what to do. And in a weird way, it was almost like I was replacing that structure of school with the structure of a relationship. I was like, just tell me what to do and I'll do really good at it, but I don't know how to make decisions on my own necessarily. I'm only used to, Virgil, get down from there. Sorry, he's being really bad tonight. You know better than that. Come on. So anyway, Virgil's my cat, for those of you who don't know. Anyway, and he's normally a much better behaved kitty. You know better than to go on the table. Thank you. So we replace that structure, that authority figure that we're used to, with anyone else or anything else that will fill the hole, and we'll give our power away by basically expecting that there will always be someone who knows better than we do what we should be doing with our time, because we're so accustomed to that growing up, whether it's one specific teacher, or just the school system, or just that value system of do your extracurriculars, get good grades, get into a good college, all that stuff that we imbue children with growing up, that forms their part of their belief system. And then the third thing that happens is that we get to this point where we don't really know how to unleash our creative power for ourselves without someone telling us what to do. So I had this thing happen to me, not like maybe it was like 5 years ago or so, when I was still a dating coach. I still work with dating and relationships a lot, but I was like exclusively a dating coach, several years ago. And I remembered one time there was this summit. There were like 30 experts on this, dating and love summit or whatever. It was one of those, one phone call a day kind of things. And I spoke to one of my friends who was on that panel, and I was like, I can't believe I wasn't invited to this. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm smarter than all these people. Like look at my material and whatever. Like, it felt like a slap in the face that they didn't invite me to this. And what I didn't realize at the time, my friend was like, well, Arden, have you gone to any networking conventions? Have you gone to places where you can meet the people who are throwing summits like this? And I'm like, no, they should have heard of me already. I was so unconsciously arrogant about it, because I knew how smart I was. And also I was having trouble, getting more and more clients, because the people who already knew about me, who maybe already read my book or already heard about me through other sources, they believed in me. They were like, I want to work with you. You really know your stuff. But I was so unwilling to show, I was so unwilling to prove myself in any other capacity, because I was like, what? I'm already smart. That's all I need to, give me a test. I'll pass it or whatever, right? It's still that same thing that school does, which basically it lays everything out for you, and it you only jump the hoops once they're in front of you. You don't actually create things for yourself out of scratch. And this is why for a really long time I had so much trouble running a business. I was an amazing coach. I always have had faith in my coaching abilities. Well, that's not true. I haven't always had faith in my coaching abilities, but now looking back, I'm like, you know what? I always pretty much, everyone I worked with left better for it. Even in the very beginning, I really, I believe that what I did with people really helped them, and that I really had a lot of value as a coach. But I had no idea how to promote myself or how to organize a business, because I was so used to the scholastic model, where all I had to do was show up and be smart, and everything was laid out in front of me. So I didn't create something for my own until quite recently. And when I realized I had this limiting belief, I'll give you the example of what I did. I hired a coach that I could put into that authority figure position. I hired my friend Adam Lyons, who's an amazing business coach. He's also the founder of Psychology Hacker. So we share a lot of very similar beliefs about how beliefs work anyway. And I said, you know what, if I'm good at school, I'm just gonna make my business model essentially for me, like for my own participation in it, I'm gonna make it like school. So now I have a coach who holds me accountable to all the things that I'm supposed to do, and gives me, homework, essentially gives me the, he lays it all out for me. So I just have to, succeed at it. And so those are some ways those are some ways that being a gifted kid when you're growing up can actually kind of screw you up as an adult. That it can get you used to thinking that the world is going to be one way when it's really not. People don't. It's not just a meritocracy necessarily. Of course, being intelligent, having a lot of integrity, and doing good work will get you really far. But you also have to own your creative power, because the world will not just put out a test for you and then you just pass it and it's like, great, good job, you get to go to the head of the class. No, you have to choose yourself to go to the head of the class. No one else is going to do that for you the way that might have happened in school. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you want to find out more about the Repatterning Project, where we tackle beliefs that are just like these, go ahead and look in the description box, click the links, come join us, say hi. I would love to see you, and I will see you in the next video.